Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I'm going to be reviewing Ole Bornedal's The Possession. Firstly, I'm just going to say I'm not a fan of possession movies at all. I like a handful of them, my favourite being The Exorcist because it really puts all the rest to shame. The problem with this movie is, to me, it's just another mediocre addition to the possession genre. In saying that now, recently, and in the last year, The Devil Inside was released, and Ole Bornedal's Possession looks like a masterpiece in comparison to The Devil Inside. The Devil Inside is a really awful movie, and one of the plus points of The Possession is the fact it's a lot better directed than The Devil Inside and is a well directed movie from a technical aspect rather than a storytelling aspect, as in the director knows exactly what he's doing with his shots and camera movements and everything. It's not, shaky cam. The plot of the movie is about two divorcees, husband and wife, who basically have these two daughters, and the father is obviously getting, to see his daughters at whatever amount of day. He leaves his apartment and he moves into this new building in this estate. Upon really looking for just cutlery for the house, they stumble upon a yard sale, and the daughter gets it into her head that she wants to buy this box, and it's a box with all this weird writing on it and stuff. And she begins to hear voices, and basically whatever entity is in the box begins to possess her. It does have a lot of pluses, but it has a lot more negatives than it does pluses. It felt really cliched, and there was barely any scares in the movie. The story itself, if you've seen The Unborn, which is another terrible movie, the plot is very closely related to The Unborn, and it's pretty similar in how it moves itself. If you've seen The Unborn, you're probably going to know by the end of the movie what is going to happen. There's very bad acting in the movie, and that's the thing I really didn't like about the movie. In particular, Kira Sedgwick is awful. She looks like an actress who has never, this is her first role in a movie and is really terrible. She's cringeworthy. Some of her acting just made me want to punch a wall. She's that terrible and lifeless and bland. But she plays Stephanie, the wife, who is divorced from Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And safe to say, I probably won't want to see another movie of hers anytime soon. If she's in one, she's pretty terrible. The daughter, Natasha Callas, who plays Emily, she's pretty terrible at moments as well. Now, in all fairness, she is a young girl, and it's a young role, and it's hard to be convincing when you're a young girl, you're in a possession movie, and you're in a horror movie as well. The problem for me with her is she just has, and it's a lot to do with the writing, she has a lot of cringeworthy moments and just terrible dialogue that she doesn't deliver in any way to help her. There's one moment where she's possessed and she's saying Emily's not here right now, and I just couldn't help but laugh at how bad it was portrayed and how bad the dialogue was. The movie in general moves very, very slowly. It's an hour and a half long and it feels more like 3 hours. Halfway through the movie I thought it would never end, and for the first half an hour or so the slow movement is a plus because it's not giving away too much, and it's an interesting way of going about it, keeping it slow. You can see from the shots that it is purposely slow. Every scene goes on for well over a minute, as opposed to quick, clean shots or quick dialogue or whatever to move it past. But there's scenes that go well over a minute, and then some of them can go to 5-6 minutes without cutting. But for me, it was just far too slow moving. There wasn't enough scares. Pretty much I don't know what I can say about that, you know. I didn't find much of it scary. I think the most frightening thing in the whole movie for me was the scene where Jeffrey Dean Morgan comes in with the Rabbi Bible and it's flung across the room. That's about the most terrifying thing in that movie. The rest of the movie is, especially the scares, is poorly acted, doesn't come across as scary. Real letdown, you know, considering I'd heard good things about it. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan is very good in the movie. He's pretty good in everything he does. The Resident is another terrible horror movie recently, and he was great in it. Hilary Swank was the one who was awful. But no, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is pretty good and he's pretty convincing. He has a kind of moment at the end where you're kind of like, your acting's a bit terrible there, but he was the only good thing in the whole movie. The morgue scene, which anyone who's seen it will know, it's a good scene. It's a great scene, and the fact that it's interesting and very weird, but it doesn't build up to being scary or frightening. It's just a more kind of atmospheric scene that is building upon tension and tension to try and draw you in to make you feel creeped out. But it's a good scene. It just doesn't lead to anything scary, in my opinion. The Box is an interesting and fresh take on possession. You know, usually it's just an entity who has stumbled across this young girl or whatever, you know, and takes her over. But in this case, it's a certain item that you have to have and have to control in order for the entity to kind of understand your nature and everything and to possess you. But that was kind of cool. It was a interesting and fresh new take on it. Bornedal, just to be honest, Bornedal, I don't really think he knew what he wanted to do. I guess maybe he had seen The Unborn and seen how terrible it was and liked the idea of it and maybe said, well, I guarantee I can make a better movie than David Goyer, which he could do easily. The Unborn is pretty terrible. But for me, the possession, it wasn't scary. It had terrible acting, apart from Jeffrey Dean Morgan. It was very, very cliched. You know, I've seen all these possession things, cliches done over and over, and there wasn't really any movement along to the movie, so it was pretty average for me. I'm gonna give it 2 stars out of 5. The reason I'm giving it 2 and not 1 or 1.5 is because Jeffrey Dean Morgan and the interesting concept of the box being the possession item. Do I recommend going to see it in the cinema? I don't know, because some people might go see it and be absolutely terrified. Possession movies tend to do that to people. It kind of hits a nerve. But if you're well used to possession movies and then, you know, you like them but they don't really do much or don't scare you, I wouldn't really recommend going to see it. I would wait for something more powerful to come along. If you want to rent it out in a while and see if you like it, definitely go ahead. But for me, I wouldn't recommend going to see this movie. Well, that's my review. I'm sorry it couldn't be a bit more positive. But I didn't really like the movie. And, you know, I do look forward to seeing what Ollie Bornedal can do in the future. But the possession just didn't do it. So, thanks for watching. And I'll have more videos soon.